Hey, good morning, everyone. This is People of Substance by LemonSkies. I am so thrilled to have my guest here. I've been trying to get her forever. Adva Priso, who's Chief Strategy Officer with More. And she'll talk about what that all entails. And I'm just thrilled to welcome you.
Well, I am honored to be here. I've also wanted to chat with you for a very long time. I think we've been kind of in the same circles for a while, but more recently met, and we have so much in common. So I'm really excited to be here today. So thanks for having me.
Yes, we share love of red lipstick, which may become a mandatory thing for people of substance.
I think so.
We briefly went to the same university, so we just keep discovering more and more things. So it's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, let me jump right in. Let's talk for a second about your journey to nonprofit sector, because your background is more in broadcasting, kind of more communications, traditional pieces. How did you make your way to nonprofit organizations?
It was kind of an accident. So I went to University of Minnesota for broadcast journalism, and I was sure I was going to be a reporter. And during that time, while I was at the University of Minnesota getting my degree, I had the opportunity to meet someone pretty incredible who I ended up working for several years, doing guerrilla marketing for Target, Verizon Wireless, and other big for-profit companies in Minneapolis. So our goals were to reach young people. And at the time I was young, it was in my early 20s. So I represented pretty much who we were trying to target. And so I helped them manage a whole bunch of young folks that were demonstrating phones for Verizon Wireless and getting younger people engaged with Target and other corporations. And that was kind of an accident how I met that person. And then she offered me a job, which I took. So I left school for a little bit, worked with her, and then after that, went back to finish my degree. So wasn't a traditional way to, do college after high school and all that. It was definitely non-traditional, but it worked for me, and I learned a ton about marketing from the commercial space. And once I graduated, I realized that if I was going to be a reporter, I was going to be making probably like $20,000 a year to start. And I would have to move to a very rural area. Mm-hmm. And given the fact that I was already making much more than that as a marketer, I decided, at this point, I couldn't do it. Yeah. So I was trying to think of what can I do that still would include my journalism and communication skills. And I ended up applying for a job at the Jewish Federations of Minneapolis and St. Paul as their webmaster. Mm-hmm. And I had taught myself coding, and so that's how I started, was writing content for their website, for outreach, social media, and then, coding the website and working on UX.
Well, and back then, and I think a lot of people who came up through the ranks during our time, you sort of had your hand in everything, because we called it webmaster, right? We didn't call it, and there was not a dedicated content person versus techie person or UX person. You kind of were doing it all.
Yeah, pretty much anything at that time that was digital would be my job as the webmaster. Yep. Exactly. And so I fell in love with nonprofit work, and things just kind of snowballed from there. And I have never left this industry since.
So the other piece that you and I share in common, kind of being in and out of nonprofits, in-house versus agencies that are nonprofit adjacent. Yeah. What are kind of the biggest differences you see? And obviously grass is always greener. There's a little bit of that. But what are some things that you have seen, and what do you like about each side of the coin?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I was relocated out here to work for a nonprofit as a marketing director, which is here in the Maryland, DC area. And I worked there for several years as marketing director. And then it was time for me to try to find something at a larger nonprofit where I really had room for upward mobility. So I ended up applying to a job at World Wildlife Fund and got the job. And it was a new position where I was creating probably at the time one of the first digital mid-level giving programs. And I did that. I was kind of the go-between between marketing and the development teams and really created something from scratch. And it ended up being an incredibly important program for them, and I think it still is. But I learned a ton being there. And the team there is just so smart. And it was amazing to work with those folks. I'm still very close friends with many of them. So the bond there was incredible. So that was definitely a pro. Again, coming from smaller nonprofits, they were testing and experimenting, and they had budgets where they could try new things. And so I ended up, working on video marketing for them and helping them launch a measurement program for their membership audiences to see how they were responding to different kind of messaging. So I was allowed to also experiment a lot, which was really, really fun. And then I had an opportunity to go to the agency side. And quite frankly, the money was much better there at the time, and I have two small children. So wanted to make sure I was maximizing my income. It was a really tough decision. But I told myself, let me try this for a year and see how I like it. It's going to be hard, but I'm probably going to learn a lot. And if I don't like it, I can always go back into nonprofits. But I ended up loving it because there's a lot of variety in working on a ton of clients. And so that was pretty amazing. Just learning every day, trying something new. Working with clients, I loved that. Everybody I met was just incredible. So there's definitely pros on both sides.
Yeah.
On the agency side, you just get to learn so much more in a much more condensed period of time. And so I was able to really progress, I think, in my knowledge of digital fundraising and marketing much more quickly than had I stayed in-house.
I think the variety piece really resonates with me. And I also have found that the best nonprofit marketers have spent time at agencies, and the best agency marketers have spent time at nonprofits.
I would agree. Mm-hmm. For sure.
So let me ask you this. We're here end of January going into February. What are some lessons, takeaways? It's probably not too soon for a postmortem from Q4 results. What are some things that you have observed, and what are you taking into this year?
Yeah, Q4 this year was definitely challenging. Obviously, there was a lot going on with the election, with the economy. Things were really volatile. And so actually back in Q3, and even over the summer, I was working with my team to try to figure out how can we plan for what we don't know might happen in Q4. We didn't know, obviously, who would win the election, if like last time the decision might go longer than usual. Last time 4 years ago, Meta had a pause on ads for a while during that time, any kind of issue-based ads. So we really wanted to kind of make sure that we were planning for any possible outcome. So we did that, and we were very well prepared, overly prepared, it turned out, which was great. I was kind of assuming the worst and hoping for the best. And the best actually turned out for our clients, which was very exciting. And we saw social actually outperform previous years, which was amazing because social has been, especially Meta, has been not as successful for people as it was several years ago. But it looks like they have updated a certain part of their algorithm called Advantage Plus, and it kind of takes the lookalike concept and takes it to a whole other level, where they're really taking those billions of data points and finding people that are typically not within that model. So that worked really well for us. Search was also strong. Costs were up, but as long as our clients were continuing to invest, we saw a much higher average gift, and so that made up for that as well. Email was flat or soft for some organizations, and I think those, especially that invested in lead generation earlier on in the year and also had programmatic ads like connected TV and display, native and audio alongside their more direct response channels, fared much better overall. And we definitely saw a lift for the organizations that did have programmatic on in search, in email, and in social as well. SMS was definitely continuing to do well too. Website traffic was down, but overall our clients did really well, and some really had record years.
So you just rattled off a whole bunch of channels. I mean, we're a long way from what if we send an email and ask for money, right? Like we've come a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels a little bit overwhelming. So I think one of the questions that a lot of people struggle with, and literally I was having this conversation with someone last week, how do you keep up with the trends? How do you keep up with what Meta is up to? How do you keep up with what to expect from search? And everything is changing so quickly, and the rule book is sort of out the window.
Yeah. Well, I think I admitted to myself that I'm one person and I can't possibly keep up with all of it because it's changing every day throughout the day so quickly on all of those various channels. And so what I've done is surround myself with really smart, curious people. And so I'm very lucky. My team, I think, is the best in the biz. We have folks that are experts in email, in search, media planning, programmatic, social. And so we really have kind of deep expertise into each channel, along with folks who understand, the general marketing and how it also ties in with direct mail. And so, we have a chat that is very lively throughout the day, every day. And as people come up with new information, or they've tested something for a client, or a client is having a certain issue, or they've come across an article, they'll pop that in the chat. And then usually one of us will go in and do a deeper dive and share back. And so that kind of collaborative nature has been really great. Obviously, I subscribe to a lot of different commercial websites and, get a ton of email around advertising. But that's been a really great source.
Yeah, there's only so much you can read in a day, right? So without really just getting those takeaways. You alluded a little bit to online and offline and kind of the integration between the two. And just, again, not to date ourselves, but integration used to mean that you time your email around the same time, roughly, very rough estimate, when your mail arrives in house. That's not what you're talking about when you're mentioning integration today.
Yeah, I think it can include that, and it probably should include that. But yeah, I think we've moved beyond kind of the basic of sending an email chaser after direct mail piece. We obviously have moved to co-targeting with direct mail, and so that's been really critical to see lift in direct mail for our clients. So usually we'll have programmatic ads running a week before it hits home and a couple weeks after, and then we measure the incremental lift there. But overall, the way we're looking at it isn't really channel by channel or even integration anymore, because nowadays we have to be omni-channel. We have to be wherever our audience is. And like you said, because everything's changing so quickly, I think we would be behind the times if we just picked one or two channels that were kind of coordinating. It really all has to work together. And so that starts with really good data and modeling. And so we have some amazing data scientists that we work with, where we identify the right audiences for the client's missions and then we find them wherever they are, whether it's online or offline.
Yeah. My favorite thing is when somebody complains about an ad on a certain website, you sort of turn it back on them. Well, what were you doing on that website?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's not that our ads are on the website. It's that that's where you are.
Yeah. Yep.
I've noticed recently some of the mail catalogs, and there's still kind of that 4-color, beautiful printed catalogs are arriving, and they don't even include a way to order through the catalog. There's no like insert form, because they're not expecting you to fill out a form and mail it in to order restoration hardware furniture, right? Like you'll either go online or you'll go into the store to actually purchase it. So it's almost like a branding lookbook.
That's true. I've seen that like with Amazon. Have you gotten their catalog? I've gotten their catalog like over the holidays, which my kids were really excited because they could do like a wish list from it. But it didn't even have pricing in it. It was just descriptions of the items with the pictures. Right. So yeah, that's super interesting because they're assuming you're going to go online to order, especially for those kinds of
Amazon. Yeah, you want that free delivery. Well, to turn our attention to more fun things, and I could talk to you about digital strategy, non-digital strategy all day long, and we probably will do a follow-up at some point. But I want to ask you, beyond what people see on your resume, and you've shared about your background in broadcast journalism, so we know that you can't use that. What are some things you can share about yourself that your peers, colleagues in nonprofit space may not know about you?
When I'm not in a suit.
When you're not
normally, most of the time I'm not. Outside of work, for sure. Well, I grew up playing piano since I was 2.5, with very intensive teachers, twice a week for 2 hours. And, at one point I was going to go into music in college. And I decided that I probably wasn't going to be practicing like 8 or 9 hours a day, which you would have to commit to that to be really good at that kind of craft. So anyways, went into journalism, but I played piano and saxophone growing up, was in marching bands and jazz bands. And the fun thing is now my older daughter, who's 15, is also playing saxophone. And she's been in honors bands, for jazz, and she's just doing amazing, which is really exciting. And it wasn't anything that I pushed on her. Other than that, scuba diving is probably a surprising one, but I have my license, and I love snorkeling, scuba diving, and just being in the ocean.
What's your favorite scuba diving location that you've been to?
Well, the Red Sea in Israel was incredible. I don't think it looks the way it did when I first went there, unfortunately, but it was beautiful when I was scuba diving.
That's amazing. Well, as always, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. I just so appreciate you as a professional, but also the friendship and just everything you do. So I'm just really grateful to have you on.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me, and we'll have to do brunch soon.
Yes.
Thanks.